Tuberculosis is a 1944 Disney animation that's actually kind of scary. It makes TB seem really terrifying. And it's definitely well put together, well animated, and pretty informative. Now, I will say I watched part of this in English and part of it in Spanish. My Spanish isn't very good at all, but it was very clear to see what was going on. But I just wanted to make that known, and I will link both the English and Spanish version in the description. They were both uploaded to YouTube by the same person, so thank you to them for uploading it. If I ever watch the English version in full, if I ever find it and my opinion changes, I will, of course, do a fresh discussion, but I doubt my opinion would change. It's very clear to see what's going on, even if you're not that great with the language. And obviously, this is all about tuberculosis, and it starts off with discussing how it spreads, and we have an animation of the lungs and a person breathing, and we see that it's contagious and passes from one person to the next, and then we see some people lying in hospital beds and then somebody being isolated. And it's certainly, I don't want to say they were scaremongering, as I don't think that was the plan, but it definitely does seem to make it really scary. And I guess TB now is much easier to control. The vaccine was discovered or created, I guess, in the 1920s. So the vaccine did exist at this point when it was released in the 1940s. But obviously, still pretty dangerous. A very quick Google search actually tells me from a PubMed article that there were 194 per 100,000 persons died from TB in the United States in 1900, and then that went down to 40 per 100,000 people in 1945. So it's definitely a decrease around this time, but certainly that's still a significant amount of people. So I can understand why they've kind of, at least in my opinion, made it seem pretty scary. And if somebody you know has TB, you keep away from them because they breathe on you, you get it and you die. It's not quite as dramatic as that, but I do feel like there's this sense of danger portrayed with this, and I feel like obviously had this been created today, it would be the same information pretty much, but I don't think it would have the same tone. That's not to say TB isn't as dangerous as it is today. Certainly if an individual has a weakened immune system, it really can be, but obviously treatments for active TB have significantly advanced over the last 80 years. So it would be a very different approach today. But I still think, even if there is a kind of fear aspect to it, it's still very informative. The animation is pretty decent. And as I said, even though I watched the second half of it in Spanish, I could still see what was going on. It was still very clear. If I haven't mentioned anything that's significant from the Spanish aspect, obviously I do apologise, and I will recap if I need to, if hopefully we ever get a full English version out there, but I can't find one. But if anybody does know of one, please feel free to let me know. But based on the English version that I saw, and then what I could pick up from the Spanish version, it's informative, it's educational. Yeah, I think it could scare some people into taking the right steps to, first of all, avoid exposure to TB, to prevent latent TB where possible, and then, of course, what actions need to be taken if active TB does occur. So, very educational, a little bit foreboding, decent animation, very clear animation. It's not too busy. There's not too much going on the screen at any one time, which I think when it comes to educational shorts is a really good idea, as you know exactly what it is you need to be focusing on. We get to see an x-ray of the lungs and things, and an animated x-ray of the lungs, and it's very well presented and ultimately not too bad. Definitely will look out for a full English version, but I don't think my opinion would change at all. But nevertheless, if you're interested in this kind of thing, then it's definitely worth checking out. And as I said, I will put both the links in the description if you want to give them a watch. It's certainly pretty interesting.